Hey there, if you're enjoying this podcast, please take a moment to leave a review and to follow or subscribe. Don't forget to share with anybody that you think might be interested. Your support is greatly appreciated. Word of mouth is incredibly powerful, and it's the best way for us to reach more people and grow this wonderful community. Thanks again for listening. This is the Stop Time Podcast. I'm your host, Lisa Hopkins, and I'm here to engage you in thought-provoking, motivational conversations around practicing the art of living in the moment. I'm a certified life coach, and I'm excited to dig deep and offer insights into embracing who we are and where we are at. Today's guest is someone I've had the absolute pleasure of teaching during her time in the commercial dance and musical theater program at Pace University. She is a radiant talent who was most recently seen lighting up the Broadway stage in Back to the Future. Her other Broadway credits include The Prom and Mean Girls, and she's also graced the screen on The Tonight Show, SNL, Blue Bloods. Most recently, she performed in the Saturday Night Live 50th, which must have been really fun. From a little girl with big dreams to a performer living a wild and beautiful life, my next guest is living proof that dreams really are possible. I couldn't be more excited, really, to reconnect with and introduce you to Susie Carroll. Susie, welcome to the show.
Thank you. That was so kind. Thank you.
I mean it from the bottom of my heart. You know, when you sent me your bio, it says so much about you. And part of it is because I know you a little bit, but even if I didn't know you, I think I would feel this way. So I'm just going to share it with you, which is that, you know, you had a few of your credits or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And then you had this beautiful line, right? Little Susie couldn't even begin to imagine this wild and beautiful life. Dreams are possible.
Yeah.
It's beautiful.
Thanks. I've really been actually thinking about it's been a lot recently where I've just been like, there's been many moments where I've stopped in my track and I'm like, I really like that, you know, on the hard days, it's like, no, I know it's kind of cliche because everyone kind of, it's not unheard of, but like, I've been really thinking about my little self of like, no, but literally she would be like, you know, I wanted to do exactly this my whole entire life. So it's pretty cool.
That is really cool. And it's funny because it's also a little bit intriguing to me. And so maybe we can dig in there. I mean, why not?
Yeah.
Which is that like, well, what doubts did little Susie have? Because when you sort of position it as she never would have dreamed, is it beyond what she ever would have imagined? I'm curious.
Well, it's funny, actually. I guess, I mean, maybe she would have dreamed. Maybe I'm saying it wrong. Maybe she would have dreamed, but I just think that it's like, it does feel beyond the wildest dreams. But I don't think it's, if honestly, in my personal opinion, little Susie had way, way less doubts than Susie does now. She was way more fearless. I mean, I still feel like fearless is something I kind of still can, take on. But she was way more like, I mean, I knew I wanted to go move to New York City when I was like 10. And I would ask my mom at like age 10, I'd be like, can we get out of here? I grew up in Utah. It's like, can we get out of here? Let's go. Like, I think it's time. Like, I think I'm like, should be on Broadway. And so my mom was always like, no, wait, you know what I mean? Like, it was just not in the cards for my family. And thank goodness I waited, but that's where Pace University came into play, where I was like, okay, well, where's my first open door where I can get to myself to New York City? And that was Pace, audition for schools, and Pace University was how, my first way to be like, okay, I can make this New York dream a reality.
Wow. So talk to me. What did you know about New York? Had you been to New York?
I had, I mean, my parents were very generous in that way, where I was so obsessed with it that like the first time I ever came to New York, it was my 13th birthday. And that was like a trip with my parents, and they were like, they took me to shows. I actually think it's hilarious. My first ever Broadway show I saw was American Idiot. And I think my parents were like, what, this is what we're doing. And I was like, yes, this is awesome. Like something about, just there's like that edgy punk rockery show that I was just like, this is awesome. That secured the bug. And I mean, my whole family, they work in health insurance. Like they don't have any idea what theater is. So I went home and, got on the computer and found that there was a summer program I could do. I was just like constantly finding like, how can I, practice this craft. And my parents were very generous in helping me with that and supporting me through that. So I would come to New York every summer And then New York City College was the first time I lived here.
So take me all the way back to the beginning when you started dancing. What did you see? What was your inspiration?
My mom put me in dance class when I was really little. Like I was like dancing when I was like 3 and really loved it. And then again, my parents, my family didn't really know the world at all, really. But my mom always wanted us to, be very well-rounded. So we were in everything. I did soccer and all sorts of different things. And my dad really didn't like it at the time. He was very much so like, I don't know, like I don't want, because once I started dancing, I basically was like, I like was like, okay, this is mine, forever. But my dad really didn't want me to just be a dancer. He was like, she needs to be well-rounded. And so I grew up in Utah, so I would have to go ski. I had to ski on the weekend. That was like our deal, that if I would go to ski school on the weekend, I could dance during the week. And so that was like our deal for a long time, which now is awesome. I love skiing and I love that I have that skill in my bag. And then it was about 10, I think. I went and saw our local theater did Oliver, and I was like, oh my gosh, they're dancing
Mm.
and singing and telling a story. Like they're not just dancing, right? They're telling a story. And I think that was something that was so like that's where really my wheel started turning. And then the next year they did Susical, so I auditioned for Susical, and that was my first musical, and fell in love with that. And then just kind of, just then started taking voice lessons and everything, along the way, as long as I was skiing on the weekends. Um, but I did. Then I was kind of, that's where we went from there. But that was kind of how I fell into it. My mom just put me in class at a young age, and truly, since I was 3, I like had that strong
That's amazing.
call to it.
That's amazing. Yeah.
Yeah,
What's so amazing about that is that, well, the agency that you had, like this knowing,
yeah, yeah.
and you come with that. You bring that energy to a room.
Thank you.
You do. Since the moment I met you, I have really strong memories of, like I said, your presence. You're so game. You're so ready for whatever.
Yeah,
What do you attribute that to? I mean, I understand the love. I understand the calling, that that's where you belong.
yeah.
Is there like, what else is there? Do you have a desire to serve or to use your gifts or to just try new things? Like what? Yeah, let's dig in there.
One thing about me, and if you know, like my parents and who's known me forever, like I can't, I hate downtime, which is something I'm kind of working on, because it's like that's also good for me. But
Mhm.
like I just like to be working. Like and that doesn't have to mean like in a musical at all times. I just like being out in the world and connecting with people and creating things, and I just like that forward motion. And so I think a big thing for me is like what I found with myself, because I hate to be stagnant. You know what I mean? Like I
Mm.
want to, like I always say all the time, it's just like, I just like, if I'm not like growing and learning, then like, so it's like, and sometimes honestly, sometimes it is to my deficit where it is like, it's exhausting. And I do wish I could just be like, okay, like take a beat and let yourself, it doesn't have to always be moving, which, I don't know. I don't know if I'm making sense, but it's just
Yeah,
like,
you are.
because sometimes it is like, okay, oh my gosh, like take a second and acknowledge what you have done, but I love connecting with people, and yeah, it is that greater purpose to me than like, I don't always just love performing too. Like I really love being in a room just with creatives who just want to do good and serve. Yeah. If that makes sense.
Yeah, no, it makes a lot of sense. It's interesting. I'm hearing you sort of starting to recognize that maybe that's not the only way or the best way, because there
Hmm.
might be something you're missing. It's interesting. I often talk to my clients about sometimes our strengths. That's a strength of yours too, right? I mean, it's not
Yeah.
a bad thing.
Yeah.
But sometimes our strengths overshadow, they become our weaknesses
Right.
because we default to them because they
Yeah.
work, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and so
Yeah.
that's how you always operate until you can't. And when you can't, for whatever reason, a pandemic or lack of a job or an injury or
Right.
whatever it might be,
Right.
then what do you do, right?
Right.
And
Yeah.
yeah, and I mean, it's it's Interesting. Talk to me more about like what the story you tell yourself about. I get the value. I'm hearing the value loud and clear. I don't
Mhm.
I don't dispute that. But it is interesting because you have really identified a pattern that, if disrupted, like what happens to you if your pattern gets disrupted, your pattern of really moving forward, as you said.
Yeah, I mean, I think where I have gotten better at it is because I think for a while it was a completely full cup or a completely empty cup, right? And I do think that I had, especially, I mean, I crazy enough, I've lived here for 10 years, which is like so wild to me. I can't believe it. I can't believe that this is 10 years living in the city. But I mean, I think that for a while it was really disruptive. If I had nothing on my, if I had like, it felt so stark. It felt like I was either 100% me or zero, just
Mm,
like with working and with being in that forward motion. Now I feel like it's a little bit better. I actually just taught last weekend and I was talking to some of these students, they're college students, and I was talking to them and I was like, the best thing about being in New York, and I think the best thing that I learned is just to keep where I feel like the biggest like revelation I've had in maybe the past 2, 3 years is that the more you're able to craft this world or like this pie chart of friendship, of non-performing jobs, of performing jobs, of networking, community based people, you know what I mean, as long as you're nurturing that, then the second those like that second the like Back to the Future closed, of course I was devastated when Back to the Future closed because
yeah.
it was such a beautiful cast and experience, and it was truly one of the best experiences that I've ever had, of just a really good camaraderie in a
Mm,
space. But it was the first time it didn't feel so like I went under the earth, because for a while it did feel that way. For a while it was very much so like if I go from this forward motion to nothing, it's gonna be dark. And now I feel like I've gotten to this point where I have the same families that whether I'm in a show, they release me and let me out to the world. And then when I'm not, they take care of me and say, yeah, you want to come nanny for a couple of days? Or, you know what I mean? I've got my friends that existed with me throughout the entire time of Back to the Future, and they're still my friend. You know what I mean? Like I have the people I can call on and say, hey, I'm out of work. And it just like that's become such a more beautiful thing that I've learned of like, you can't rely on just that one thing ever. I've gotten better at like, if it's sometimes just journaling of like, just to be like, okay, I don't have anything this week, but this is why, this is the things that I'm going to sit with and enjoy and celebrate that I've done. And you know what I mean? And like kind of earn my, you know, sense of, you know, of a break.
earned your sense of a break. Is that what you
Yeah.
said? That's
Yeah.
okay. That's really interesting.
I I know that was probably gonna sound as good. I don't really mean it like that either.
I
I
know.
mean
Yeah.
like I mean like, it's just like I feel like it's gotten a little less, you know, um hard to have that time off. Because I I am the happiest version of myself when I am with a full schedule. It is just is who I am.
Yeah, that's fair. That's
Yeah,
fair. And it's interesting, I guess, there's probably an opportunity for full to not be only to broaden that criteria.
right.
Do you know what I mean? Because there's
Yeah.
something probably about full
Yes.
that you up until now, and it makes sense as you're building your career, because all the boxes get ticked when you are doing theater, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, but to ask yourself, what is it about theater besides the inherent theater stuff
Hmm. Hmm.
that really lights me up?
Right.
And when I don't have a gig, where can I find that?
Right.
And that's what will absolutely, rather than that, like you said, the binary, right? Off on.
Yes.
Well, I
Yeah.
don't have it, so I'll deal with it. I can learn how to journal. I
Mhm.
can learn to give myself grace, but it's
Right.
like or you can find that same joy in a different manner, maybe. What do you think about
Oh,
that?
yes. No, I mean, you're exactly right. I mean, it was my like long-winded roundabout way of saying it, but yes, like I mean, it's like the second Back to the Future closed, while I was devastated, oh my gosh, I get to go to dinner at 7 p.m. Like like that is amazing. And like
Yeah.
the just seeing life in like all of its ways. And it's just creating this full life that means full in so many different ways
Mm.
that now it feels like full can be supplemented as okay, the show schedule leaves, then it's still full because I've got this great group of people that I want to see at night and I get to go on dates and I get to, you know what I mean? Like it's just like
Mm.
continues to be full and continues to feel, you know, just like a warm hug as I go through all of it. And then I get to do a job and stuff like that. So yes.
I love it. I love it. So, what would you say is your biggest challenge?
My biggest challenge.
Yeah.
I really struggle with perfectionism. I mean, I think that probably makes sense with everything I kind of was talking about, like always wanting to go, go, go and
Mm-hmm.
be working and all of that. But like, I think that is definitely something I work on a lot of just like being a, I mean, it's funny because and I do mean it with my whole chest of like, I love to be growing and learning and constantly evolving. But sometimes I hate being that like ground zero student of like
Mm.
a new skill, you know, or like going and being like, oh, this is a great example. Cutting my hair is actually a great example. Like it's been so funny for me because I cut it and the day I got home, I loved it because they styled it for me and it was styled perfectly. And I was like, yes, I am rolling with this. It's so fun. It's freeing. I just got to do this. Then for the next 2 days, I've had to try to style it myself. And I'm like losing my mind. I'm like, how do you style short hair? I've had long hair to here for 20 something years, right?
Yeah.
So now I'm like, and so then it's like, and I get so frustrated. This is like, it's a perfect example of I'm so frustrated. And then I'm like, Susie, you've literally never styled short hair a day in your life. Give it, you know, give it a couple weeks to try something new every single time. And then you'll get in your groove of knowing how to style short hair. But that is definitely, I think, one of my biggest challenges. And that's like a small example, but it's like honestly, like it goes into a lot of forms of my life where I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
Susie, you've never styled a bob before. You've never done it. Like, so have fun getting to learn how to do it, you know? And I actually think it's like, it was funny as she cut it, I was like, wow, like, I'm like I'm so proud of myself because it really does. Like, I just like fought my perfectionism and it, like, you know, head on because I just have no control over this now. It is gone. I cut it. So,
Yeah.
so
Yeah. I love that.
yeah.
It's so rich, but it is a good example. You know, sometimes the simplest, life examples are really indicative of the pattern, right? And
Yeah.
it's interesting. What really strikes me, and maybe I can ask you about this, is that, and it kind of makes sense as I think about it.
Mhm.
Because you said you really hate going into, I think you said, if I heard you correctly, I really hate going into, I don't know how you framed it, but basically into a realm that you don't know, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
and or one that you can't control.
Right.
So it makes sense that in your realm,
Hmm.
which you are essentially, pretty confident in as a master and an ongoing master, you pretty much know you can handle. I mean, there's a lot of ifs, ands, and buts, right? But
Right.
would it be fair to say that when you say, for example, go into an audition, that you can't control whether they pick you or not, but you can control how you present yourself.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so if that were true, then does that help you? Does that help you know that the goal becomes to control what you can control, which is to be the best you can be?
Yeah.
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 See, I
Yeah.
feel that about you. So it comes off as a strong confidence
Right.
because you can control how, quote unquote, air quote, perfect you can present yourself.
Right.
And nobody else controls that. And then the rest is do you ever get caught in feeling like, I did my best, but I didn't get picked, for instance? What goes on in your head?
You know, honestly. I don't struggle with that
Yeah,
much.
I didn't think so.
I don't, and I don't mean to be like, I'm sure that might sound annoying to some people, and I don't know if it's just, I mean, don't get me wrong, there are some instances where I'll go in for an audition for a job that I really want. And I'm like, oh, I really wanted that. But there's not often times where I'm like, I take it in more. I don't know if it's because I've been here for long enough, but I genuinely really, really, truly, I'm like, I think it's just like I'm meant to be in the spaces I'm meant to be in. You know what I mean? And then the times I don't get things because I'm in the city, I get to go see that job that I didn't get. Many times where I'm like, yeah, that wasn't mine. Like
Mm.
that wasn't mine, and that's a beautiful thing. And I'm so glad that that was yours. And you know what I mean? It's just like I really do believe there's enough for all of us to go around. I really do, and I think that you're like we are found in the spaces like and I do also live by the mantra of like if they like you if you want them and they want you, then that's where it's like, you know what I mean, like it's like if you're trying to fit into something that it wasn't for you, like I never struggle with it too much.
No, I didn't think so. That was my instinct, but
Yeah,
I didn't want to assume that.
yeah,
It's interesting, but that fits into the control conversation, right?
yeah,
And to a certain extent, yeah, the perfectionism, meaning,
yeah,
controlling focusing on what you can control,
yeah, yeah.
which is amazing. And it's interesting. My other question makes me think, because you do a lot of swing work, which is
Yeah.
maybe you can explain what that means. So when you're a swing on Broadway, what does that mean?
I cover all of the female identifying people in the ensemble. So, Back to the Future, there was 7 tracks that I covered. Mean Girls was 8, and I think Prom was 7. So I've pop into somebody's injured or sick or medical leave. I kind of can go in and fill in for anybody whenever
Yeah.
needed.
Yeah.
But
That's
it's
that first of all, that's a phenomenal skill.
yeah.
Um, but I'd love to, I've never really asked anybody about this. I think it's really interesting just in terms of like mindset.
Mhm.
How do you, for instance, how do you control? I get that you would be able to control because you'd study and you'd
Mhm.
understand the parts and you were given the part, ergo you're able to do this.
Mhm.
But how does the perfectionism come into that, if at all? And then also, what about the not really knowing when
Yeah.
or who you're going to go on for? Talk to me a little bit about that.
Yeah, it's funny because it's like it is funny because in a weird way, like this swinging is like the best thing I think that could have ever happened to me because and it just fell in my lap too. Like I just it was just like I went. It's actually a phenomenal story that I can tell you now or later
Yeah,
about how I booked the prom. Yeah,
sure. Tell us.
it's actually fun because I know that you know Gabby Campo as well.
Yeah.
So we were both sent to an audition because the prom was looking for one female swing. And before they went to Broadway, and we went to this audition, and there was, people there all day. And then they basically started cutting people down, 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 down until was narrowed down to like 4 of us. And Gabby went in to sing because she's Campo. She went in to sing before me. And then I sang, and then I went in to sing right after her. And actually, before I even sang, they said, actually, can you step out for a second? We need to talk to Gabby one more time. And I said, okay, sure. Even before I went and sang. And I said, sure, no problem, whatever. And then Gabby went in, and then I went in after her, sang for real this time. We both left. And I remember kind of leaving that space with her being like, we're both pretty sure you just booked the prom on Broadway, right? And she was like, yeah, I'm pretty sure I just booked, you know what I mean? Like, and we celebrated. I mean, she was a year older than me. It was like, it was one of those things where I think we both were like, if it's not me, it's you. If it's not you, I mean, we were like, let's go. Let's just do this.
Yeah.
And then that following Monday, we showed up to school and she had gotten the call and it was awesome. It's just like, and it was perfect. And, 1 year later, so the prom opened, that was like January of 2018. The prom, they went into like a lab and then they opened officially November of 2018. January of 2019, never went back in for the show, never auditioned again, nothing. I just got a phone call January of 2019 to join the show, the prom on Broadway as a vacation swing. So I love that story with my whole heart for so many reasons. One, because it has to do with Gabby Campo and I love her to death. And two, because it's just like such a testament to just like going into an audition room and doing your best work and knowing that if you do your best work, you never know what could come from it, you know? So I just love that story. And swinging just fell in my lap in that way. They needed a swing. They saw something in me in that room that day. It
Mhm.
wasn't my time. Thank goodness. I also say this all the time. I'm like, thank goodness. I was a junior in college at that time, and I am so glad I had one more year of experience under my belt to
Yeah.
then join them, especially joining them as a swing. Like I needed that time to really then show up as the way I did. So I'm so glad it happened the way it did.
Yeah.
But so then to answer your question, I swinging just fell into my lap. I and it was the best thing that ever happened to me because the only way to be good at it or to, learn through that is by doing.
Yeah.
And mistakes are literally the inevitable. Like,
Mm. Sink or
and
swim. Yep.
it's sink or swim. And it's like, and then it's like, I always say, it's like you go and you're like, oh, I know you said that they crossed downstage with me, but I didn't realize how close they, are downstage with me. And so that is why we bumped into each other. I knew
Yeah.
you, and I could look at that on a paper for the end of time. And I am a little bit like that because I do like what we're talking about. I have this like sense of like, I like to be prepared to the end of the earth. And so
Mhm.
I will sit in my living room by myself, looking at my notes and going over 1,000 times. And because I want to be the best I can be. And I love to show up and work hard and produce good work. But you're never going to know until you are on that stage. I'm like, oh, I understand you said that. But you literally, we're all breathing, every single day on that stage. Our hearts are beating and we're a little different than we were yesterday. And so, oh, okay. But I never felt that it was that kind
Yep.
of closeness or whatever the example is. And so I do think it helps as I was just doing, as I've done this job so many times, I'm just like, oh, okay, okay, got it, learned. Next time I'll do, next time
Mm.
I'll do better. Next time I'll understand that. But and I grew to really, I've grown to really love it. I think for me, it's like, I love the stimulation of it. I love seeing the audience from this angle, from that angle. I love seeing the scene work from this. I like talking to that person. Then tomorrow I talk to that person or
Mm.
I'm talking to myself the next, you know what I mean? Like, I think it's so
Yeah.
exciting and fun and it's such a great challenge. And again, I think that's what I kind of said that might be the theme too, is I like love little challenges. I
Yeah.
love to like keep myself stimulated and engage and challenge. And swinging is that ultimate thing. And
Mm.
so, I mean, don't get me wrong. I mean, there are days where it's like, I cannot believe I'm here doing this again. This is, so hard. And then there are days where I'm like, this is awesome.
Yeah.
I really, really, really enjoy it.
Yeah. No, for sure. And that's that forward motion piece, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Have you ever been part of a show not being a swing?
Not on Broadway, no.
Is that one of your goals, aspirations?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
it is.
Yeah.
It is. I would love to go to work and not think. Like, I mean that lightly, but like I would love to go to work and be like, I know exactly what I'm doing today. That's awesome. And at intermission, sit and just have a snack, I'm having a snack while I'm watching that video. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like,
for sure. For sure.
so yeah.
It's that fullness though. It's interesting because as you said that, I was like, wait, but that's the fullness that you talked about that you love, which is
Yeah.
it feels a little empty when the show's over, but it's
Yeah.
like in a microcosm. It's like, but even within the show,
Yeah.
you're doing multiple things. Like that's the
Yeah.
way you roll, right?
Yeah.
So interesting. So
Yeah.
interesting. Are you afraid of anything in this landscape? What are you afraid of? Whether it be work or just whatever. What scares you? Is there anything that kind of makes you go, "Ooh," like where's your edge?
No, I have to think about that. Again, I mean, I mean, it falls into the same category as the perfectionism, as like of like messing up drastically. You know what I mean? Like publicly being bad. I have fear of like, you know, I've been doing a lot of TV work and like that forever of like that TV scares me in many ways because it's
Mm,
like when it, like theater is like a little more like, okay, well tomorrow I'll just do it I'll just do it different,
yeah, it's
and
gone. Yeah.
TV, that is not the case. There it
Mm,
is, the stakes are high, it costs a lot more money, and then it is signed, sealed, delivered, and it's done. So it scares me a little bit more. And so I think it challenges me in a way of like still keeping that looseness of like, it's okay. You know what I mean? Like
yeah.
moving through it and being like, even though it's there forever, it's fine, so
Yeah. It's exercising that letting go,
yeah,
trusting. Yeah.
yeah.
What's your definition of living in the moment for someone who's so motion oriented?
Right. Um, I think living in the moment, showing up authentically as you, and like really just being just like so open to, like just having like that feelingness of openness and just being so true to who you are, I think is so important of living in in that moment, like
Mhm.
is just being so unapologetically yourself, able to just kind of let, like what we're talking about, like just like let anything, you know, like having your feet planted, and then if the wind blew you this way, you'd go that way and be totally okay. And then that way be like, you know what I mean? Like, I feel like
Mhm.
that is just being like totally receptive of whatever is coming your way. But keeping your feet completely cemented where they are is, and authentic to you is, I think, what would be living in the moment for me.
Yeah. No, totally. And how often do you sort of live in that space?
I would say pretty often.
Yeah.
And the older I'm getting, the more I feel that way. The more I'm just like, yeah, this is what I need and this is how I function. And I think I've gotten better at that, of like, you know, of just staying true to me.
Mm.
Well, also, I mean, there's a million factors that go in every day. And there's a million things that, people are going to ask so many different things of you. And like, just like being able to be, like I used to like have to like be like, okay, well, I'm going to respond to that email in, a little while because I have to think about how I want to, you know what I mean? And I feel like I've just it's just like, okay, just a little bit more like taking care of myself within all of it.
Mm. Yeah. Is there a dream that you haven't put out in the universe yet? I mean, you're living your dream currently, right?
Yes,
But is there one that maybe is sort of toys around in your head that maybe you haven't put out in the universe?
I'm still trying to figure that out actually,
Mm.
because I think a big thing for me is I have attained a dream, and it's been so obvious for me for so long since I was like that 10-year-old girl. And so now it is, I have had these feelings of like, oh, I mean, I don't get me wrong, I love this and I'm so happy within all of this, but I'm like, I do feel like, there is something in me where I'm like, I know that there's more that I want to do. I just haven't been able to really, really pinpoint on what it is.
Mm.
Yeah, I don't know, because I don't think I want to perform forever. And I know that for sure.
Mm.
I do know that for sure.
How do you know that?
Um, I kind of have known, funny enough, I've known for a long time. I remember actually right before the pandemic, I was very much so like, I love this, but I know that I don't want to, like, it just like was, if I'm honest with you, I was on stage and I was like, I had this like moment of like, oh, I don't want to be, and I love the world. And I'm not saying I need to stray far from the world, but I'm just like, oh, I don't know if it's going to be, and I don't know, I can't right now. It's not clear to me. It's not clear if that means choreographer. It's not something like, I'm not sitting here like I'm dying to be a choreographer. That's not something that's, I'm still trying to figure out exactly what it would be. So I don't know.
That does it excite you just not knowing how does
Actually
that
does
make you
excite
feel?
me.
Yeah.
It does. It does, because I think for so long it's been so concrete.
Mm-hmm.
Like this is exactly, and it's again, it's I guess really the theme is it is a challenge of like, okay, well, it's not going to come naturally and easy. You know what I mean? Like I'm gonna have to like really try new things and kind of walk a different path than what I've been walking.
That's so interesting.
Yeah.
Or walk the same path, but look at it differently.
Yeah, exactly.
How do you want to be remembered?
I hope that I remember to be someone who, I hope I leave a very positive impact of bringing people joy as well as kindness.
Mm. Hmm. Yeah.
I just love connecting with people. I think that we're all so more connected than we all think we are. And
Mm.
I think that just sharing kindness and sharing, and just being receptive to other people is like the other day I sat down on a plane going to Ohio, and I sat next to this guy, he's an older man, and we didn't talk for the first half of the plane, and then second half of the plane, this is a very sweet story. His wife was 2 rows above us. We were in the exit row, so they didn't want to sit next to each other because she didn't want to sit on the exit row. But she had really bad flight anxiety, and so
Mhm.
he would get up and check on her from time to time. And then finally he came back and sat, and I was kind of, chatting with him of different things. And he's from Ohio, but he lived in New York for 50 years. I grew up in Utah, but I'm originally from Ohio. He lived
Mm.
for 50 years, we talked about restaurants and different things, and just like got a lot of, kind of old New York wisdom from him.
Yeah.
And then he asked turned to finally him asking me what I do. And I told him what I do. And he was like, oh my gosh, I mean, I'm like, Broadway is so important to me. I've gone to Broadway shows my entire 50 years of New York.
Mm.
What have you been in? And I told him Back to the Future, and we kind of came to the conclusion that there's I'm a swing, so it's not, we weren't certain, but I was on a ton in the month of September, and he
Yeah.
was like, I went and saw it in September. And like, just like kindness and connection is so important to me, because you can miss out on so many conversations like the one I had with that guy. You know what I mean? Like,
Totally.
and it just like, I just think it's the more that you are willing to just like open yourself up. I mean, like, then you get these connections with these people that fill your life in such a beautiful way. So that's why kindness is so important to me personally.
Mm.
Kindness and just like receptiveness, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
because kindness can mean so many different things.
Yeah, exactly. Which is why thank you for, I mean, I love to hear what it means to you. How do you recharge? Because you're a go-getter, right? You're very busy.
Yes.
How do you recharge? What do you do? What works for you?
That is where is my battle, especially when I'm in New York. It
Okay.
is. I do live alone though. There are some times where I'm like, I need to be solely alone.
Hmm.
But I love just like having somebody over and sitting them on, like, be like, sit on my couch. I'm gonna cook a meal and we can just like, just be together.
Yeah.
And that to me is recharging. Like,
Hmm.
but then there are moments where I am like, no, no, no. If I'm in a very busy day, there are moments, or like a 2 show day, there are many times where I do need to come, like, even if it's like I'm coming home for 30 minutes,
Yeah.
also something that is like in my kind of habit where I am like, I don't know, I don't care if I have to travel for 30 minutes to be home for 30 minutes. Like, I just need that like kind of like touch base with me, and that helps.
Hmm.
But then I also recharge by I love spending time with my family, and I have these 2 new nephews that I love, and like if time allows, I will go to Ohio, which is where they are, and
Mm.
um be with them, and just kind of take a breath out of New York, because as much as I do love it here, I do love a good suburb in Ohio.
That's so cute. I love it. We've talked a lot about some of your highlights
Uh-huh.
in your career,
Uh-huh.
and I'm curious to know, are there any lowlights?
Um, yes. I mean, there's definitely been, I mean, long periods of time that I wasn't, performing there. I have had the most incredible career so far, but I definitely also know somebody who goes from show to show. You know what I mean? Like it isn't like I do experience unemployment, because I have some friends who don't, and that's just their reality. They just go from one show to the next, and that is um I really try not to look at it as like a low light. I mean, the pandemic was totally low. I mean, it was totally low. I mean, it
Hmm.
just sucks. I mean, because it did feel so stark. And at that moment, I was still younger at that point. So I didn't know how to like, I felt like I didn't know how to pivot and shift and be like, okay, let's try something new. I just felt so stuck in it. But then it's like, now I look back on it, like, it taught me so much. You know what I mean? It was like,
Yeah.
I don't now look at it as low, I don't look at it low. I'm like, okay, well, it taught me that I had to, have a whole foundation of other things to keep me going. It did teach me so much.
What do you know will stay true about you no matter what happens?
I mean, I feel like it's everything. I mean, we've talked about, which is just like, just that sense of optimism, and ability to just, see the good in
Hmm.
everyone and everything.
Yes, I think you nailed it. So, can you finish this phrase?
Yeah.
Most people think Susie Carroll is, but the truth
I
is.
think people think I think they do think I am very monochromatic, in the sense that life is easy, life is good. I'm happy all the time, and things just come my way, it is, I look at it a completely different way where I'm like, I work really hard to make those things true while also living a very full life of all different emotions and all different
Mm,
things and all different things. And I choose to show up in a certain way. And, or like you said, and I also feel like I am very authentic in my way where, or I don't, but I also am like, you know, when I'm not, I'm very open to being like, yeah, it's not my best day. You know what I mean? Like,
yes.
but I work really hard. I work really hard and I've worked really hard. Like this has
Yes.
not always come natural to me. You know what I mean? Like
Yep.
I did grow up very much so like everything's fine now, all's good. You know what I mean? And
Mm-hmm.
I've earned my stripes here where I'm like, no, I'm a really hard worker. Things don't just come to me. You don't see the level of work that is behind this, underneath this surface here. And
Yes. Yeah,
yeah.
that's so valid. It's interesting because the word depend came into my head, which is that people can depend on you for a lot of things. I could make a list of all the things you just said, right?
Yeah.
Of yeah. What's something that people could depend on you for, but that you never really get asked or expected to show up in that way?
I don't know. So think about that. I don't know. I'd have to think about that.
Yeah, fair. It's an
Uh,
interesting
Yeah.
thing to think about, right?
Yeah. I'm not positive.
Yeah. Yeah, fair. Good. I'll leave you with that thought.
Okay.
All right. We're gonna do rapid fire. So I'm gonna say what makes you. I'm gonna say a word, and you say the first thing that comes to your mind.
Okay.
Okay. You ready? Now
Yes.
there's no being perfect at this. So. I
Oh,
even it's funny, I even felt at the beginning of our conversation that you kept, I don't want to say judging yourself, but you kept reeling yourself in with that perfectionism going, I know that's not the question you asked me, and I know it might,
yeah.
right? And this might really sound stupid.
Yeah.
It's so funny. Nothing sounded stupid, and you answered
Yeah.
perfectly
Thank you.
for you, because however you are, you're exactly where you're supposed to be. And what
Right.
you say is exactly, and I really do believe that we all do the very best we can in any given moment,
Yeah. Yeah.
but all our moments aren't the same. That's
Right.
the piece that we miss sometimes.
Right. Right.
Right. So, are you ready? Okay.
Yes.
All right. All right, Susie Carroll, here she comes. What makes you hungry?
Uh, uh, I don't know. What makes me hungry? Um, well, I love food. I don't know if that's a question though. I love food, so I'm hungry all the time. But what makes me hungry? This city makes me hungry.
Mm,
I want to take it in that like I just like being in like it just being absorbed in the city really makes me just like hungry to try new things.
yeah. Cool. What makes you sad?
Oh my gosh, there's quite a bit. The world is quite challenging right now.
Hmm.
Um, but um, yeah, and I feel like, I mean, gosh, there's so many things that make me sad. I just really wish people had accessibility to equal opportunity so that we could all live our best life.
Hmm. Yeah. Well, inequality, right? Inequality
Yeah,
makes you sad. Yeah.
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 And having people who don't believe in inequality makes me even more sad.
Mm. What inspires you?
Um, my friends. I keep a very great group of friends who continue to challenge each other, and it really inspires me on a daily basis.
I love that. And what makes you frustrated?
My perfectionism,
What makes you laugh?
TikTok,
What makes you angry?
when people don't listen.
Mm. And finally, what makes you grateful?
So much. I try to wake up and journal every morning, and I just
Mm.
like really try to use a world full of gratitude. But like even like, I live in this little apartment by myself, and it's like I'm always so grateful for that. Like when I wake up here and I'm like, oh my gosh, like it just is like a reminder every day. Like I live in New York and I by myself, and it's so cool. So
Mm.
It's great. I mean, but that's like such a small thing. I'm grateful for so many of my friends and my family, and
Yeah.
it's hard to pick one.
Yeah, fair. Yeah, fair. What what are the top three things that have happened so far today?
I made a really good breakfast sandwich. It was phenomenal.
Nice.
And then I went to work out with a good friend of mine, and we go to the same gym. And so we worked out, had a great time. And then this podcast.
Mm. What's something you're looking forward to both today and then, in the future?
Today, I am going to try a new restaurant in Brooklyn
Ooh.
tonight with a friend who is on a show schedule. So we get to see each other often on Monday nights.
Mm.
Going to try a new restaurant called Marga. And then in the future, I am looking forward to the summer. I love the summer.
Mm.
It's my season. But I teach a lot in the summer, which I always look forward to, and I get to spend some good time with my family in the
Yeah.
summer.
Oh, that's nice. You'll get out of the city a little bit, will you?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. That's nice.
yeah.
That's nice. I so appreciate you spending this time with me today. Really.
Yeah. Likewise.
It's
That
been
was so
such a
fun.
pleasure. Yeah.
Yeah.
I've been speaking today with Susie Carroll. Stay safe and healthy, everyone, and remember to live in the moment. In music, stop time is that beautiful moment where the band is suspended in rhythmic unison, supporting the soloist to express their individuality. In the moment, I encourage you to take that time and create your own rhythm. Until next time, I'm Lisa Hopkins. Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, I invite you to dive deeper into cultivating a life of creative possibilities with my new book, The Places Where There Are Spaces. It's filled with personal stories and insights to help you embrace living in the moment. You can grab your copy by following the link in the show notes or wherever books are sold. Let's keep the conversation going and growing.